The next thing we are going to go over in our AutoCAD checklist is going to be dealing with snapping, copying, and moving objects. Snapping, copying, and moving objects. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure our snap is on. So I'm coming down here to my status bar and snap is blue. So I want to make sure that it's blue. If I click it, it's off. If I turn it on, it's blue, it's on. The next thing is I want to make sure I select snap points from my snap object setting drop-down menu, which is a little caret right here. I click on that, and now I've got this window. I want to make sure that I've got endpoint, midpoint, center, geometric center, and extension. I mean, quite honestly, if you turned everything on, it would not be a bad thing. Next, it says create a line, a circle, and a square. So here I've got a line, here I've got a circle, here I've got a square. Well, I also have the other geometric shapes that I created, and we'll just go ahead and keep them up. Now it says to highlight an object, and how I do that is I will click on the object until it turns blue. So that's how I highlight an object. I select an object by clicking on it and making it turn blue. Now, once I highlight an object, in order to really see what's going on with the snap functions, I need to try a command like copy or move or something like that. So if I right-click my mouse, I get a drop-down menu, and I want to select, we'll just select copy. Now, I'm not going to click anything else. I'm just going to hover over some things to demonstrate different points. So for instance, if I hover over an end, you see I get an end point. If I hover over that end, I get an end point. If I go to my line and I hover over an end, I get an end point. An end point looks like a green square. That marks a snapping point at the end of an object. If I hovered over the middle, so here's an end point, here's an end point, but if I go to the middle, I'm going to get my midpoint, and my midpoint is going to look like a triangle. I lost it there. Where we're at. There it is. So my midpoint is a triangle. Over here, there's a midpoint. It's a triangle. There's a midpoint. It's a triangle. There's a midpoint. It's a triangle. If I hover over the center of my object, well, now the center of my object looks like a green circle around an X. So that's the geometric center of my object. And it's only going to be of a geometrical object. A line is just going to have a midpoint, which is a triangle. It's not going to have the center, geometric center, which is a circle with an X. And finally, there's something called an extension line. Now, here you can see as I'm on a point, and as I start to move my cursor away, I get this green dotted line. So if I came over here to this endpoint and I start to move my cursor away, see, I get a green dotted line. If I went to the midpoint and I move my cursor away, I get a green dotted line. That is a guideline. So it can give me a guideline in any direction. Well, I shouldn't say any direction. There's going to be, parallel and vertical lines, horizontal and vertical lines. So those are my snapping areas. And so I have to choose one of these areas to begin copying. So the next part of the checklist says, go ahead and locate the snap points on a line. We did that. We located the snap points on a circle. Well, Let's look at the snap points on the circle. So if I go ahead and highlight the circle, and again, if I right click and I hit copy, okay, I get a circle doesn't really have an endpoint. So a circle has a quadrant instead. So there's a quadrant, there's a quadrant, there's a quadrant, there's a quadrant. Between the quadrants, there, I must not have it selected. There should be a spot. There is also the geographical center, which I hold my mouse cursor in the center, and there's that circle over the X, which represents that geometric center. And then let's go ahead and find the snap points on a square. So I'm going to highlight the object. I'm going to right click. I'll hit copy, and I've got endpoint, 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 midpoint, 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 and then the geometrical center. And we have copied all that. So now let's talk about the copy function. It says, after highlighting an object and selecting copy from the drop-down menu, which we're still in the copy mode, it says specify a base point. So you see right there next to the crosshair, it says specify a base point. So we're going to select one of those snap points. So I'll just select this middle one here. Then it says move the mouse away, which I'm moving the mouse away. And I move it away and to the left, and I click again, and now I have pasted my new object. And I can move it down. Now, the only reason I can move it this way and this way is because I'm in ortho mode. If I come over here and I turn off ortho mode, well, I could paste one here and I could paste one here. And so when we get into moving and pasting, it's probably a good idea not to be in ortho because you don't necessarily want to be limited. So it says to go ahead. The next one says copy and paste a circle several times with ortho mode off. So ortho mode is off. I highlight it. I right click. I hit copy. I'll select a point and I'll just do the side here and copy the circle several times. Boom. And I've done that. I've copied that circle several times. Then it says go ahead and try that with ortho mode on. So let me turn on ortho mode. Same thing that we talked about before. If I specify a point now, I can only move either to the right or the left, or I can move up and down. That's all I can do with the ortho mode on. This time, it wants me to try copy with the dynamic input feature. Instead of using the right click and the down drop, what we're going to do is we're going to highlight the square. And this time I'm just going to type in the word copy, C-O-P-Y, and you can see it's popping up with my dynamic equivalency. So I can select copy. There you go. Specify a base point. I'll specify a base point. And I'm in ortho mode. So, you know, I can go ahead and copy. And as you can see, I got a lot of objects here that I have copied. Now, we can do the same thing for move. So let's say I've got, here you go, I've got these two circles that are kind of touching. I don't want them to touch. So if I highlight an object and I will hit right click and I'll hit move, same thing, I need to specify a base point. So let me grab a base point. And then all I have to do is move it. So copy and move, they work hand in hand with the snaps. So in the checklist, it says move a square several times with ortho mode off and with ortho mode on. Oh, I've got all these squares here, so I can, we will move it, specify a base point. Right now, I've got ortho mode on, so I'll just move it over here. I'll move this one over here, and I'll go ahead and turn off ortho mode, and I'll try and move this one. Now, maybe I want to get this lined up. How would I line this up perfectly if I want to get it in line? Well, all I'd have to do is hit the center, start to come down, and there's that guideline. And if I keep it on that guideline, guess what? It is perfectly in line with the one that I had before. That's what the guideline is for. Let's do that again. So I'm going to go ahead and move this one. I will grab it in the center, and I want to keep it in line with these ones. So if I just get on the center, I start to move away, there's my guideline, and voila, everything is in line. So that's the purpose of the guideline. That's the purpose of the snaps. I can also do move with dynamic input. So I highlight the object, I type move in the keyboard. Immediately, it pops up next to my crosshair. I'm going to hit move, and same thing. I can specify a point, and this time I'll keep it in line horizontally. So you need to copy and move objects using the right click with a drop-down menu, using the dynamic input. Now there's one last thing it says to do. It says draw a circle, a square, a triangle, and move those objects one on top of another so that they all share the same geometric center. So I've got a square, I've got a circle, and I've got a triangle. So we're just going to stack them on each other. So I can, choose either one to begin with. So let's move this, hit in the center. I'm going to move it right here. Let's try the circle. Right click, move, hit the geometric center. And this time I want to put it on the geometric center of the triangle. So now look, it's stacked one on top of another. And finally, I'm going to get my square. Geometric center, and look, the triangle, the circle, and the square are all moved and snapped to the geometric center. That's the last thing you have to do for the checklist dealing with copying, moving, and snapping.